So we've established a variety of benefits to eating insects, nutritional value, and more environmentally friendly are among a few of the reasons. And while that's all well and good, the real question is, does it taste any good? Well, we're going to answer that question right now. We've decided to explore 3 different types of insects: mealworms, crickets, and silkworms. Several studies have looked to identify why crickets are such an attractive food product for these cultures. One of the reasons is because crickets are a very flexible ingredient.
Consequently, crickets can have a variety of tastes, ranging from chicken to vegetables.
Here's an example of a variety of flavors that have been identified in crickets.
As mentioned before, many of the characteristics of a cricket's flavor will stem from how it's processed. So you might be asking yourself, how exactly does this work?
The process itself is not overly complicated. The crickets are first starved for 1 to 3 days. The killing of the crickets is done as humanely as possible, through blanching. From that point onwards, the world is your oyster. You can fry, dry, roast, and even mill to use as flour.
Not only are crickets able to take the flavors of their surroundings, but tastes and aromas can also be influenced by the cricket's diet, meaning that what they eat can impact the final flavor of the cricket.
Unlike crickets, mealworms are not as versatile. While you can choose to cook them or process them in whichever way you'd like, flavor development is not the same in all of them. The most favored method might be the broiling one. There are several upsides to this method which can lead to a tastier product. Broiling allows for the extraction of the mealworm oil. This helps in the browning and flavor development of the mealworm, while at the same time increasing the crunchiness of the insect. As you can see on our flavors list, the mealworm provides less variety in the flavor components. The most commonly identified flavors are nutty, umami, and cereal-like. An important contributor to this is the Maillard reaction, which explains why high-temperature processing can make the mealworms tastier.
A more versatile use of the mealworm would be milling in order to create flour. Nowadays, mealworm flour is increasingly used in a variety of applications. One example is meat replacers. Products like insect burgers or nuggets are increasingly available on the market. The same goes for foods like cookies and brownies. The intent here is to use the milled insect to replace either the flour in the cookies and brownies or the protein flour obtained from vegetables that is used in meat replacement products.
Finally, we're going to cover an insect that is less common than the other ones. We're talking about the silkworm. These creatures have been eaten in places like China and Korea for ages. However, that's not what the Western world usually knows them for. The threads of this worm are used to produce silk, a technique that was highly guarded by the Chinese during the times of the Silk Road.
While it made them large sums of money, the silkworm also served as a snack. Because it's not as widely consumed as other insects, there isn't as much research available on the taste of silkworms, other than the perception of the consumers themselves. Silkworms have a nuttier taste and are less peculiar to Western consumers. Analyses of their content also reviews the presence of an umami-enhancing particle. Silkworms are normally consumed either raw, boiled, or fried. In places like Korea, you can buy them on the streets as a snack where they are cooked with several different typical seasonings.
Despite this, certain companies are looking to innovate on the silkworm front by taking the same path that we have already taken with other insects.
This is to say, companies are now looking towards using silkworm as replacers of proteins in traditional food products.
A company in Japan geared towards the production of silkworm products has produced several alternatives, such as silkworm smoothies, silkworm chips, and even silkworm burger patties. Among further research that's being undertaken is the possibility of influencing the taste of silkworm through their diet, as is currently done with crickets and other insects that are being increasingly consumed by humans. Normally, silkworms have a diet of exclusively mulberries.
So we've established that insects can have a variety of desirable flavor qualities depending on how they're cooked and processed. So the question that remains is, why aren't these insects more popular in Western cultures? The answer is quite simple. Stigma. Several research papers have looked to understand why. In the West, the perception tends to be that insects are dirty and undesirable creatures. Therefore, food applications with insects are not very popular. The positive aspect is that as the amount of research on insect as food grows, we see that people are increasingly willing to eat them. This is mostly often seen in the younger population, or at least willing to try, compared to the older population where a smaller amount of people is open to experimenting with these insect foods.